eXp saying, hey, we're not going to offer it from our side. The seller would have to offer it. I think, however, it gets offered, that's going to be something that happens. History shows us that that will happen. This is Byron Lazine going solo today, and this is episode 329 of The Real Word. Haley, you'll probably have to edit in Nicole saying, word is up, pop her up, word is up, word is up.
Word is up.
Nicole vacationing in the Cape this week. No quality internet. So I'm going to give it a go on my own here because there's quite a bit of news since we last did a pod last Tuesday. We do this pod every single Tuesday. Obviously, subscribe here to the main YouTube channel if that's where you listen. Or if you want the replays, they're always available on Spotify and Apple. Okay, what was the news that we saw, as we always cover industry news here on The Real Word, that has been released since last Tuesday? Okay, we're going to cover first the eXp seller toolkit. Obviously, The Real Word, we've covered their buyer toolkit extensively. We also covered the since deleted post from Ricky Carruth, which spurred that live stream with Leo Pereira, the CEO of eXp. And we got a lot of his authentic insights on how he's thinking about it as a CEO and how he's navigating it. He personally reached out to me on Friday. There's an article on nowbam.com, which we'll link up here in the show notes, that also links to their seller toolkit. He said, hey, we just went public, open source with the seller toolkit. I want you to have access to it. So he sent me to that immediately as they released it. Thank you, Leo, for doing that. I'll cover it here in just a minute. We also have an NAR resource. Okay, on Tuesday, after we released this show, recorded this show anyways, NAR released some resources. So we're going to cover that. There's also a Zillow touring agreement that was announced on Thursday for 24 specific states. We covered that in detail over at Knowledge Brokers Podcast on Friday, myself, Lisa Giannotti, and Tom Toole. And we went through all of that, all of us being real intimate knowledge of Zillow and how it works and all that, those two being effective in their state in particular. And we went through that. So I'll just link that up if you want to go with that full discussion. That's probably a better place. So we'll focus on the eXp seller toolkit and the NAR resource here on this Real Word. So first up, eXp sellers toolkit is out. They obviously have their listing agreement in here, but something else they have, and it's highlighted when you scroll down the page. I'll have Haley show it here on the pod. When you scroll down, you don't have to scroll down very far to see one form in particular blown up, highlighted with a button to click on it, an arrow going to it, featured form. So they have other forms. They have the exclusive authorization right to sell form. They have the disclosure and acknowledgement of non-represent form. They have the amendment to real estate listing agreement. So if you're going to amend the listing agreement, single property buyer broker agreement, buyer broker representation agreement. They have that all on the seller toolkit. Those are more forms, but they chose one as the featured form. That's the direct compensation form. So if we click on the direct compensation form, this is the form that is titled Direct Compensation from Seller. Number 2, the undersigned seller agrees to compensate undersigned real estate brokerage company buyer's broker for its procurement of the buyer of the property. Now, eXp Real Brokerage is doing the same that eXp is doing here. Not saying there's any, I'm just saying, hey, these are some of the companies that have decided on this model where they are going to make it very clear in their form that the seller is personally paying that buyer brokerage company for its procurement of the buyer of the property. Compensation shall only become due and payable upon completion of any transaction between the seller and the buyer concerning the property. Paid in U.S. currency. Agreement shall act as escrow instructions for the seller payment of compensation to the buyer broker. So it's going to happen at closing. Obviously, it's going to be a percent or an exact number. But they're making it very clear that this is going to come from the seller. Now, I've seen some states, one of which the state that I'm sitting in right now, where the board has released forms that cover this in the same way, except for seller's brokerage company to be paying the buyer broker company. Because in the FAQ around the NAR settlement number 32, it says you can do that. Okay, it says that a brokerage company can pay another brokerage company. You can offer out that compensation. Can't do it on the MLS, but if the seller wants you to do it, then you can do it. There are now a growing number of companies that are saying if the seller decides that they want to offer out buyer compensation, they will be the only ones that pay it. Meaning, when this is what Leo said very clearly here, okay, when we did the live stream, that EXP will not be paying any other buyer broker. So I'm to assume that even when an EXP agent brings a deal to an EXP listing agent, that seller is now going to be filling out this form and paying EXP a buyer check and a the listing commission check if they decide to go down. The seller decides to go down this path. This is a one-page form. There's not really much else to it other than that. Okay, you've got length of agreement, no seller agency. This agreement is a compensation agreement only. Seller acknowledges that no agency relationship between seller and buyer's broker is established by this agreement. And so it'll be interesting. I'd love to know from you how they're going to handle dual agency. Are they going to do it the same way? Obviously there's some state to state stuff there on the dual agency that would probably supersede this form. All of the companies, by the way, that have come out and said, hey, this is the way we're going to go, have also said what Leo has said here, where it's like, we're going to follow some state regulations. There's going to be some flexibility. Leo's quoted in this BAM piece, when he reached out to BAM, our senior editor got a quote, said, we didn't create the rules, but we are creating a path forward. I actually would agree with that. I'd agree that they are open sourcing this information is something that I'm really, honoring them for. I'm really happy with what they're doing. I think it's a brilliant move. Number one, it's brilliant in a couple of respects. It gives full transparency to what they're doing to consumers and customers and clients, and that's who matters the most. It also, for a place like EXP, who's built on recruiting, this is a recruiting tool for them. This is something that they can point to, like, hey, have you gotten any information from your broker? Like, we've open sourced this for the whole community. Why don't you go ahead and use it, right? So it's like that. I can't remember her name. She's a Remax agent down in I think in South Florida, where she wrote the book about recruiting, and she talks about, I'm apologizing for butchering her name. Maybe we can drop it into the comments for anyone that remembers the name here. But she wrote the book about recruiting, Remax agent. Anyways, she says, be their broker before you're the broker, right? And that's essentially by open sourcing this information. That's what eXp is doing. They open source the buyer representation toolkit, and now they're open sourcing the seller toolkit. Okay. We've gone through the buyer toolkit. You can go back on a past reward and check that out. Okay. So, again, I think the scripts, the forms, the agent resources that are on there, it's a really smart idea. It's not just the forms, right? They've got other resources. They have a lot of scripts. They also have something that's very interesting, and it's something that everybody should consider doing if they are, going to be sitting in front of a seller. They have it headlined, it's all about the net, N-E-T, capitalize. Always provide a net sheet with scenarios at the time of listing. For every offer received, ensure the seller gets a net sheet. So they're saying, hey, don't even just go the length of providing a net sheet up front when you're kind of figuring out, hey, what's it like? Is there taxes I got to pay locally to sell my property? Is there state taxes I got to pay? How much do I pay an attorney? I got to pay off my mortgage. I got to pay you. I'm paying all these things as a seller. What am I ending up with? I want to know, what is my bottom line? eXp's seller toolkit says a step further. For every offer received, ensure the seller gets a net sheet. So run a new net sheet on every single offer received. This is brilliant, right? We want to be, if it's going to be about the numbers, it's going to be about the transparency. Make sure that you're driving that information, okay? For multiple offers, use a spreadsheet to show the differences. So they actually have a multiple offer review sheet. Again, I just think this is good practice. I think this is a really job well done by eXp. I'm not advocating anybody goes to eXp or anything like that. I'm not at eXp. I just want to make that clear. I think they're doing a really good job, a really strong job of getting this stuff out there. Okay, so it's interestingly enough, on their seller estimated closing costs, their net sheet, the last line item is potential buyer broker compensation. So they're factoring that in on the net sheet, that this is going to happen potentially more times than maybe it doesn't happen. Okay. The stats would tell us right now, even since the announcement, almost in every single MLS that I've ever looked at, you've got or got access to, or title access and information to, or ran the numbers in, you still had over 95%, an overwhelming amount of sellers choosing to offer buyer broker compensation. Okay, buyer broker compensation is listed here on the net sheet. So for everything, and where I really had an issue, and you can go back and listen to last week's Real Word where I had Ricky Caruth on, I really had an issue with Ricky saying, hey, there's going to be no model that exists of agents believing that they're offering, buyer commission directly from their side, basically, is what he was saying. And eXp saying, hey, we're not going to offer it from our side. The seller would have to offer it. I think, however, it gets offered, that's going to be something that happens. History shows us that will happen. History shows us that's a model that people end up going towards, is this incentive model. And right now, even since the announcement, you're not seeing anybody really come off of that model in a significant, meaningful way. Some other companies, I mentioned Real, that is doing this model the same way that eXp has decided to. That would be the white labeled brokerage side. Steve Capezza, Caps, as they used to call him back at his Zillow days. Shout out to Caps. There is a nuance on a per state basis. Okay, he's quoted in this Housing Wire piece saying, at Side, we've invested millions into our brokerage platform, including the quality of managers that run each market we're in. And many of them are part of the local associations and have a deep understanding of the rules and best practices being established in their market. We really lean on them to find out what's best for our agents and clients in those markets. So it's really going to come down to, okay, what are these state rules, is what he's saying. Sharran, buddy over at President at Real, Srivatsaa, says it needs to be seller directed. So Real, eXp on the same page on this deal, okay, needs to be seller directed. All we are saying is that it actually puts a seller at a disadvantage. So Sharran's take is a little bit different. Sellers are at a disadvantage if offers or compensation are not actually advertised, because it gives away the seller's overall position. But if a seller wants the offer advertised, we are telling people they are free to do it as long as they comply with the settlement and local MLS rules. I'll disagree with Sharran there a little bit, okay? Saying that the seller is at a disadvantage in a market with very low inventory, that could be true. That is true when you just look at it. But a seller being at a disadvantage when there's months of inventory that are increasing. Think South Florida right now, where months of inventory are increasing and price cuts are rampant. When you see a market like that, when you see a market of recovery, a la 2012, 13, 14, and even in some areas, 15, where properties were sitting on the market for a long period of time, and it was hard to get traffic on those listings. Sellers often used incentive techniques to get more buyer traffic through the property. Even today, we see national home builders using this. 8% being advertised in some communities, getting that number out front. Obviously, it's going to impact some buyer agents to spread the word, get more buyers excited about it. But it's another form of marketing, even for buyers to see, really, well, if they're offering 8%, maybe I should go look at that. Maybe I could get an 8% saving. It actually works both ways, right? I always talk about the open house being another way to tell the story about a new listing, about a listing that maybe doesn't have. You can only talk about this property being listed in the features so many times. If you've been on the market now 3 weeks, you need something else to talk about. Hey, we're doing this open house. This is what's going to be there. These are all the benefits and the features. It's another hook to get people information. Next Home CEO James Dwiggins is also doing the same thing, as well as others. So we'll see kind of what takes shape, if this is going to be the model that's overwhelmingly adopted. It's not a model in the NAR settlement that is the only model. Again, in the NAR settlement, it is very clear that you could do broker to broker comp. All right, speaking of NAR, they've released their new consumer focused resources ahead of practice changes in this settlement agreement. What is included in the resources? They've got their fact sheet on what practice changes mean for home buyers and home sellers. These resources, one for sellers, one for buyers, outline what buyers and sellers should expect after August 17th. Okay. A broker's guide to upcoming practice changes. Brokers have been all over the scale on this thing. And you've seen some that have gotten out in front, open source. You've seen some that are still, I think, working on this up until August 17th, or maybe even going to go trial and error through August 17th, which is unfortunate for potentially those agents. A template, number 3, compensation disclosure for active listing or buyer agreements as of August 17th. The template disclosure can be used for active agreements as of August 17th that need to be amended. So think about that. You've got properties on the market. Do you need to do any amending? Okay, this is a 1-page compensation. It's like a notice. Okay, it's not even anything that anybody would sign. This compensation disclosure that's been put out from NAR. So that's what NAR has put out. I think it still falls short of what I've seen in the eXp buyer toolkit and eXp seller toolkit as an example. They're not doing much leading at this point right now. I think they've gotten the settlement, and now they're really relying on the brokers and obviously these local MLSs and local associations and following state guidelines to really now create what that next part of the business is going to look like. If you're still waiting on NAR to lead, I think you're better off finding that local leader that's investing in the training, investing in the business, so that these conversations actually flow easier. So these conversations are more transparent. There's an argument that a lot of these rules that are being implemented make it harder for you as the agent to create transparency around everything that's going on. It makes your job harder. I do believe that is going to be the short term. Your job's going to be harder in the short term. It's to really work through this change in the short term. It's going to require a lot more effort. It's going to require more manual. And then as we kind of settle in here, it might take 3-6 months. It might take a full year. Who knows how involved that 3-letter word will get on all of this, and if there's changes down the road. And I'm not talking about NAR. I'm talking about the other 3-letter word, the other government bureaucracy that is sniffing around the real estate industry. So depending on how that shakes out, at some point, you're going to settle into a business model that works for you and ultimately works for your clients. Okay. And at that point, once you've kind of figured it out, I think that there's going to be an opportunity here with tech, AI, and all of that to streamline this level of transparency, to get this type of information that we're talking about right now into the hands of the people that need it, and do it at a much more streamlined way, an easier way, a way that elevates your level of communication, that brings clients into the back end of the transaction. They're going to go deeper into the back end, not the other way around in the future. And those that lean into all of those opportunities, I think, are going to be able to do more transactions. That's what it's really going to come down to. How are you going to increase your business by 30% if the CFA is right? If 30% of commissions are going away, how are you going to increase it by 30 or more? Maybe you increase it by 40, but not by spending more time on your business, by spending the same amount of time, That, I believe, is going to be an opportunity when all this shakes out for all of the agents of change to really attack. If you're an agent of change and you want to be in the room with others just like you, make sure you come join us at BAM Mania, October 17th and 18th. The 17th is the VIP session. You get perks on the 18th, by the way. And on the 17th, we've got a limited number of tickets available for that. So October 17th, October 18th, BAM Mania. Grab your tickets. We've got the link down below for those agents of change that want to lead this and really want to be somebody who's on the cutting edge of how they're going to communicate with their clients, how they're going to educate their clients, and how they're going to transact moving forward. All right, that's your real word here for this week. Next week, we should have Nicole back. I'll be back in my Naples studio by then. She should be back here, and we'll have another pod for you. Until then, of course, keep it real. See you next week. With August 17th approaching, it is more important than ever for agents to keep their clients, not just for the transaction, but for life. So I believe so much in what Reminder Media is doing. They're creating content that allows you to stay in front of your sphere of influence, the clients that you've transacted with in the past, so that they think of you first when they have a referral, when they have another transaction. A lot of people send a just sold or a just closed realtor talk mail. Reminder Media supports agents like Nicole, my co-host on The Real Word, in building out an authentic magazine where you can advertise your own properties. Here's an example of our award-winning luxury new development that we have in Connecticut. Put it right on the back and put in a whole bunch of relevant information. You can build out the content inside of your magazine and send it to maybe people you're following up with to get a listing, or people who are in your database right now who know you but might just forget about you because you're mixing in with all the postcards from the other agents. Reminder Media keeps you top of mind with the people that you want as clients for life. That's why we believe in so much of how they're helping agents just like you stand out. Go to remindermedia.com/BAM sample. Remindermedia.com/BAM sample today to get your sample and start reminding your clients exactly who you are today. At BAMX, we listen to what real estate professionals want and need. That's why our platform is filled with sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business. And that's why we launched BAMX in a box with templates and scripts done for you, delivered each Friday. The best part? It's not coming from panel pontificators who bought their followers and don't sell any real estate. It's coming from top agents, team leaders, and content creators in the industry. It's education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. And now it includes editable templates and scripts so you can easily deliver that knowledge to your database. Every day, we continue to add more content into BAMX, into our private Facebook community, content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. So do not wait any longer. Use code REALWORD and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today. Code REALWORD for 10% off. I'll see you in BAMX.